I can't tell. I kind of want to just like pop over to my Instagram and see if I'm live on there. This is actually the first time that Instagram was able to be added to my live stream, so I'm still testing out the bugs. Let me see this.
Thank you. Can you hear me chewing? I'm eating my breakfast.
No, no, you're good. Oh, we're live on Instagram now. Woo!
Nah,
We'll see if the people on on IG can hear you chewing.
hopefully, if you can, it's the same microphone. It'll be all right.
All right, let me turn down this music. And now that we're up on all platforms, I am excited to get us rolling. Thank you for everyone that is and will be tuning in to Rico's Corner today. I am your host, Rico, and today I'm joined by an illustrious artist, Deante Howard. Deante is a Kansas City, Missouri native. Go KC. He is a globetrotting artist, husband, father of five, and devoted follower of Christ. He has embraced his passion for art by way of taking it around the globe and is making a name for himself by securing pretty cool high profile clients. His talent knows no bounds, which you will be able to hear from the artist himself, and he is, at least for me, and what I'm encouraging everyone else to do is to watch him grow and blossom in 2024 and beyond. Welcome to Rico's Corner, Deante. I am super excited to have you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm excited to be here as well. And thank you for that introduction.
Of course, you're welcome. Definitely had to make it right. And this is for sure your first time on the platform. Just what
Mhm.
are some of like your initial thoughts of like just kind of like what it took to get here and all the setup and all that?
So I had not even heard of Restream, like this whole setup. I like this. Like I could see you, I could see me. There's this like slideshow presentation that you have, and it's all showing, and we
Yeah,
live. This is pretty dope, and it's very simple to get here. Like I didn't have to make an account or anything like that. You sent me the link. I just clicked it and typed in my name. I did think it was kind of for me was that I had to be on Safari on my tablet, and I couldn't
mhm.
just use Chrome. Like why not? Chrome is everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, some
that's
of
it.
these platforms they have their own like requirements. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that it was a pretty simple process. I chose this particular platform because of its ease of use. So I'm glad to hear that it's still working that way.
Yes, yeah, very simple.
All right. As you noted, I do have this slideshow up. That will be once we get to the show and tell part of this interview, which is toward the end. But before we get there, I'm going to jump into some questions.
Okay.
And the first one is just if you wouldn't mind kind of talking about how being a KC mode native, how has that influenced your artistic style at all, if in any way? And then especially as it pertains to the imagery that you choose to portray in your pieces.
So being from Kansas City, it influenced my skill and my craft, and then the way that I do things more than the imagery choices that I picked. That came from some other things. So I break that down. Just where I grew up, like in the inner city part.
Hmm.
Like unfortunately, this is not like a claim to boast on or anything. Like there's a time like in my youth, like where Kansas City was on the list top five most dangerous cities to be in. Like people changed the initials of KC from Kansas City to Killer City because like the homicide rate, like it was it's very dangerous. Like, and that's like putting it lightly. And where I grew up was a part of that epicenter of where that violence was happening. right? So I'm not a stranger to it. Unfortunately, in some ways, I'm even accustomed to it to the point where like sirens and gunshots is like that's a familiar sound. Like that's not something like, oh, get down, what's happening here? Like that's
Mhm.
like that's 5 blocks away. We all right. Like you can hear that, right? So because of that right there, that kind of environment growing up in. Like I love sports. I've always loved sports. As a child, I had like a very small frame, but very athletic. Very fast, very athletic. The thing is, because of where I grew up, being in the inner city, like most of the programs at that time that were not associated with schools were not around that area, so I couldn't really participate in them because of how far away they were.
Mhm.
That with the fact of like I was raised by my dad, single father, and I had 3 other siblings, so it's 4 kids on a single father's income. So like he's working, and like you work, and then you have to also pay for these programs. You got to get us to and from those programs. So like it wasn't something that could happen, right? And
Mhm.
then like even going outside to like play, do like pickup games and things like that, couldn't always do that depending on the circumstances of what's happening around the neighborhood at that time, right? So art was something that even without having like high finances for activities, like you can do art with like anything,
Yeah.
like like with anything. Like I could take my notebook paper for school and pencil, just regular number 2 pencil. Like you don't have to have like a lot of different equipment or expensive things to do art, right? So you have that, which kind of pushed my other passion from sports to art and made that more of a focus, right? And then in Kansas City, like just around the inner city area, there were people who did like graffiti on buildings. Sometimes it was like murals that companies and things paid for. Sometimes it was people just doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. But seeing those things like around the city, like the bold colors, especially growing up in the '90s, growing up in the '90s, like that era, just period was very bold and bright and vivid in color. Like think about like Taco Bell commercials and MTV and just like all the stuff around it, starter jackets, right? So it was very bold and colorful, and like seeing that graffiti was definitely something that influenced my style. Like the paint dripping from the spray you get close and it drips down, like you can see that reflective in my style. Like that's something that when I was like, I love how this looks. Like,
Yeah.
like, like just the contrast in colors, the imperfections that make beauty. Like all of that just coming together. Like that's I love it. I love it. So like that's like how I got into art and how my style is kind of shaped by where I'm from. But my main imagery choices are athletes. Like I said, one of my passions is sports. A big thing with athletes, even from being young even to now, is they are they're the epitome of my motto, and this motto is something that I've come up with and phrased it how I phrased it, just as a way to express it to other people and make it clear, which is the hustle will make the dream a reality, right?
I love that.
My dad was and is even still now, like at his, his age, hardworking, like always, like he was an example for me of what hard work looks like.
Mhm.
And like people say nowadays, like standing on business, like he showcased it. You don't talk about it and teach it and tell you, like he does it, right? But at the same time, even with all that respect and admiration, like I understand also where we are, right? And like that doesn't necessarily get us out of here. Not that we was living bad. Like I loved my childhood, dangers and all, right? Like only retrospectively, like can I look and be like, we was poor. Like in those moments, like no idea, no clue. Right? Like that's how we live in. Like I didn't know that this was not a normal thing. There's so many things that,
Mhm.
like talking to other adults and things from other places, just throughout life. But I didn't know that wasn't normal. That's that's astonishing to you, like that's regular, like
Mhm.
right. So, but I seen his hard work, and then for me, for like athletes, I seen like a lot of them. They look like me, same color as me. They come from backgrounds and neighborhoods and cities and stuff that's similar to mine, and they were able to get from those places to a higher socioeconomic status, right? And it was all because they had a dream and they worked and they dedicated and they continued to craft their skills. And it didn't matter if they weren't motivated anymore. It didn't matter if there were obstacles or opponents or other things in the way. They continued on that path and went forward, right? So they're the embodiment of that motto.
Mhm.
Like they are the proof of concept. The hustle makes the dream a reality, right? So like seeing, especially like as a kid, professional athletes seems like superheroes. Like like you see like again growing up in the '90s, like that's where a lot of the sports that are very popular now, like the superstar athletes of that time, kind of what shaped what you have now, right? You got
Mhm.
like Michael Jordan, like just flying through the air. Like, how are you up in the air that long? Like, what is happening? How you up in the air and you go like this and then you go like this and then you bring it back around before you land on the ground and you shook two people in the air to jump after you. What is going on? Right? So like that excitement of like these are real life superheroes, people who look like me and people who came from places like I came from and being able to change the trajectory of like their family circumstances, like, how could I not have them
Yeah.
as subjects for for my, you know, like the perspectives and the views and things that I have? It just there's so many lessons also just in sports and from athletes. Just so that's a big thing.
Yeah. I definitely get that sense. Like, although I'm not the biggest fan of sports as an adult now, but yeah, just growing up, my father, he was very much a basketball fan. So whenever the game is on, that's what was on TV. So um, I think I looked at them less as like modern day superheroes and more just superhuman in a way, just because it's just like you are able to do something with your body that I would never be able to do. But obviously, they're like what like a minimum of 6'2" and like certain body weight and yeah. So it is interesting. But now I feel like I look at track stars the same way. Like for me, they are my superheroes just because I'm like I want to be you, but at the same time, I just kind of want to praise you because like you're already doing it and doing it so well, I'm not even going to try to compete. So, but yeah, I love that your love of sports definitely comes through, and I love what you were saying about how you get your hustle from your father. Um, One of the other things I would love to hear touch on is in terms of your actual artistic style, are there any artists that you maybe not copy, but like they are your inspiration, or you draw inspiration from their past work when you are creating like a new work or trying to come up with like a new design that you might want to do?
So like the thing with most of the graffiti, right? Like some of them might have had tags, but as a kid, like I didn't know to pay attention to those things. So like that in a general style. As far as like specific artists, I with art, like I'm a creative in the whole total sense of the word. Like I make music, I draw, I I do a lot, right? Like it's a lot of things. And a big thing for me, honestly, is that I try to not look so much at other artists because if I see something, like I know that I can say I could do that, and then I will try to do that. And even if it's not the same, like I will continue to try until I feel like I did it better. So I would like I remember I was doing music And like there was a sprint of time that like I wouldn't listen to any other music that wasn't my beats, so as to not be influenced by other sounds, right?
Mhm.
So I'm creating like my own thing. I don't really have a lot of, at least not that I can name directly, like, oh, I studied this person's style, right? I will say that there are two current artists that I seen that my style seems very similar to their style, which is encouraging me to continue in my style,
I
right?
love
Because I could see that their level of success is an aspiration for me, right? But I had this style before I knew about these artists. So it's not like, oh, I saw them, it's like I'm gonna do it that way. It's like this is what I'm doing, and then I saw somebody else's, and like one of them, his name is Chuck Styles. Somebody was like, your art reminds me of like this person. I was like, I ain't never heard of him. Let me go look him up, and like
yeah.
he does athletes as well. I'm like, wow, it does. I could definitely see the comparison in what you're saying there. Like you can see differences as well, but like I could see that comparison. And then I see like the things that he's been able to accomplish as an artist. I'm like, you know what? This is encouragement and affirmation to stay on what I'm doing, right? And then
Definitely.
the other artist, his name is Ozzy the Virus on Instagram. Ozzy Eyes the Virus, and um, with him, his his style, he mainly does like anime characters, but it's also very similar to kind of like how I do some things.
Mhm.
And his biggest thing for me, which was the encouragement, was the thing to actually start doing the artwork as something of a business. Because like before, it'd be just all like um, sticky notes, back of clipboards, like scrap paper, and like maybe I share a picture on Instagram, like bored at work today, right? And I do it. Like, but it definitely wasn't any big pieces, never with any intent to share it with somebody so that they can have it in their homes. Never that. Because unfortunately, from being younger, even though art was a passion, the misunderstood lessons that life taught me growing up was like artists artists are starving artists. Like that mindset, that thing was taught and showcased to me, not just like with words, but with like knowing other artists and like seeing like how you sustain a life from doing this. Like the
Yeah.
only right, like I see some artists and they and like I don't want to like take any shots or dig at anybody, but like they'll have like an original piece and be like, yeah, it's like $50, and I'm like, that seems very low, especially when like my only other reference, unfortunately, would be a piece that made the news from like a museum or something where they sold it for 6 or 7 figures. I'm like
Mhm.
$50. I'm like, how long did it take you to do this? And they're like, yeah, I spent like 30, 40 hours on it. I'm like, you spent a whole work week on
Yeah.
this and you selling it for 50. Like, man, how I'm gonna be an artist? Like, so it was like I, with that thought and that like those examples, unfortunately, being the ones and not having like anybody, like any mentors or coaches or anybody knowing anybody successful in
Mhm.
that field, unless like the only people that I knew that had success, which I didn't know directly, were either on the coast, East Coast or the West Coast, like in New York or in California, where you have like connections to affluential people, right?
Mhm.
Or unfortunately, they already died, so they didn't get to see the financial success. Like they're dead artists, and now their paintings are selling for a lot. Like, oh, when I was alive, I sold
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
painting for 400, but now people buying it for $400,000, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, I didn't see it as a way to be able to make a living, and like I always wanted a family. I was like, I can't sustain my family with that. What's another way that I could do art? So I ended up going to school for architecture. And I was like, boom, this is a way I could still have some creativity and do some art. And then like I'm making buildings. And I'm like, I designed that building.
Yeah.
Boom. Right? So, so I was like, boom, I can do my art that way. And I ended up switching majors. I went to graphic design. And then unfortunately, the way that I did it was through bad advice from my student counselors. And the classes that I switched, all the ones that I dropped got me withdrawals with fails. So
Mm.
they're all zeros on my GPA. And into the next semester, I lost like all of my scholarships and stuff because of that. I had no idea, right? So they don't tell me this and nothing until I'm applying for the year after that. So not the next semester where I don't have it no more, but the year after that, I come to apply and they're like, you owe this much so that you can register for class. We need a payment of at least this much before
Mm.
you can do it, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? I had scholarships. I know what's covered. I only need to pay for room and board, and I brought that check. like, like so.
Mhm.
But no, no. It's like, nah. You drop this class. That's a 0 out of 4. That's a heavy weight right there. You drop this class. That's a 0 on a 3 for your credits. Like, I was like, oh. They told me that I need to switch out of those and get these. Like, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? So I'm switching to graphic design, but I couldn't stay and finish school. So I ended up doing like my career from there was like in sales. You didn't have to have any experience or degree to be in sales. And I ended up making a clothing brand. So I have actually two clothing lines now. But I made a clothing brand in 2019 and it started to take off. And that's when the next year, 2020, I saw Ozzy Eyes on Instagram. Ozzy Eyes the Virus. And he's a young black artist. And he's doing like these anime pieces that are very much in a style reflective of like my own, but like it's still his own, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's pretty dope. This is his whole page. And look at the attention and the things he's getting. And I go on and I look and see, like, okay, yeah, he has a website. Are you selling these? Yes, he's selling these. And then I'm seeing like testimonials and like people in the comments like asking, is this gonna drop? And this is sold out. And I'm like, so you can be an artist and have that as an actual career and be alive. And I'm like, you know what? That's a big thing of the testament of the changes of technology allowing new opportunities that didn't exist. So, like, you have things where before maybe you had to be on those coasts to have those connections to those people, but now you could be anywhere in the world because of the internet and still make those connections and get yourself known. And then things like companies like print on demands where you can make prints a lot more easily than the lithographs and things that you might have had to have before, where now I can have a company say, hey, print this off, ship this to my customer that's in Mexico, ship this to my customer that's in Canada, ship this to my customer that's in Detroit, ship this to my customer that's in Florida. And then boom, they print it, they package it, they put my information on there, and they send it out. And I'm like, that's not something that could happen when I initially was thinking I can't be an artist, right? That's
Mhm.
available. So that was a big change. But that's those are the two artists that I would say have had the greatest that I can name, like influence and encouragement to pursue this as a career path, not necessarily over a style.
Yeah, I love pretty much everything that you just said, but the main thing that kind of stuck out to me was that you really had to see that representation before you could actually believe it. And I think that's true for a lot of different industries, and not just as a creative. But I think as a creative, it's a lot more apparent now of how you can make money by selling your work. And just like you mentioned, like a few years ago, like you didn't really see that as an option, really, because it wasn't as accessible to just have a third party company be in charge of shipping out your work.
Mm-hmm.
On top of, like the all the questions of, are people even interested in the type of work that I have to offer? And now with social media, it's so easy to see all the people that really do support and love your work, which is the greatest thing about technology. Is like it's able to bring us together in ways that no one could have foreseen, even 10 years ago. So all of that is just it's interesting, and I love that as part of your process to get into where you are right now.
Right.
One thing I do want to do though is to go through just a few examples of your work. I believe there's like 9 or so that I have on the slideshow, and just get your take on what the process for the pieces were, the inspiration, and anything else you want to throw in about it. So let's get started. I have this
Okay.
beautiful little intro there. So this piece.
Okay. So I actually did that piece like right towards the end of the year. Um, I had I had started a challenge, an 8-day challenge, and like one of the things that I've learned from like my research, as far as like getting engagement and things, this is for any creatives out there. Like as far as getting engagement, having a way to do something where you can share consistently but make changes, like having that content. A challenge is a way that you can constantly do something and have content, but then also create something that can be monetized within your field, right? So for me, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do an 8-day challenge, and my challenge is I'm gonna do a new piece each day, and I wanted to pick that resonated with me, that I thought that could also resonate with my audience and the people who, for me, you. I asked my kids. I have 5 kids, ranging from 5 months to 10 years old, and so for the older ones that could talk, clearly the baby can't can't put no input in there, right?
Yeah, they can
I kind of got I kind of got some ideas for topics that like resonated with me, and I wanted to see what also resonated with them. And the big thing is like with my boys, they love nature and wildlife and animals, and like just trying to be respectful and protective of the environment and the earth that we're in, right? So I was like, okay, let's do 8 endangered species, and I picked 8 different ones that's connected to like the World Wildlife Fund, and I said, okay, I'm going to do 8 of these, then pick out one each, and then I picked out the rest. And like my wife, her favorite is butterflies. She loves butterflies. Yeah, a tattoo of butterflies, like that's her favorite thing in all the world. So that's where the butterfly came from. There's red panda. One of my sons picked out. There was the leopard, and what did Kyler? Uh, I don't remember because he kind of just pointed. It wasn't the youngest one. He didn't really have like
that works too,
anything.
right?
It was just, stop. So I was like, all right, stop. I don't remember exactly which one it was. But anyway, so this is the monarch butterfly, and this is just a depiction of my style, and then painting those things, right? So that style, like you see, like the paint dripping and the wild brush strokes, and then like some of the areas where I do like there's black with the white outline. It's just like I do that because like to me there are things that a lot of people have in mind when they think about like art, and like how it has to be like this complete thing, or it has to be like perfect, and that's what makes something beautiful. But then you look at like the beauties in life, and like a lot of them there's flaws and chaos going on, and really to me it's like being able to thrive in the midst of that chaos. That's beautiful. Like to be able to say, okay, here's all this mess that says why you can't, but yet you still do.
Hmm.
So like having all that both in the background and the foreground, kind of like just juxtaposition with the subject that has like this more realistic versus abstract thing. Just that's how I see things. So like you'll see that, and then like these 2 colors, I really like the blue and the pink and how they contrast with each other, but they're
Hmm.
also very bold, and then they're also very different ends, like from a warm color to a cool color.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but even though they are very opposite, they can complement each other